I'm Chrissy Wozniak. Joining me today are three inspirational women dedicated to strengthening the agriculture industry. Today, we're going to take a look at the history and mission behind Annie's Project. Annie's Project is an educational program for farm and ranch women designed to improve women's business and decision-making skills. I want to first introduce Ruth Hambleton. She's a retired farm business management and marketing extension educator with 30 plus years with the University of Illinois Extension. And adding to her many accomplishments, she's also founder of Annie's Project. Next, I want to introduce Annie's Project co-CEO, Dr. Karisha Devlin. She's a field specialist in agricultural business and the University of Missouri Extension, or with the University of Missouri Extension. And she is passionate about educating farm women and has been involved with Annie's Project since 2004. Also with us today is Annie's Project co-CEO, Doris. She's the president of Sunrise Agriculture Associates, and she's an agriculture consultant, an ag economist, educator, and advocate. She's served on the board of Annie's Project now for 4 years. So welcome, ladies, and thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you for having us.
Good to be here.
So let's start out with, can you each tell me a bit about yourself and your background? And Ruth, do you want to start?
Sure. Well, my background is I grew up on a small dairy farm in northern Illinois, around Frankfort, Illinois. Hello to my fellow Frankfurters. I went to Carbondale, Southern Illinois University at Carbondale in the early 70s. And that's pretty much what started my adventure to transition from northern Illinois, where I grew up on a dairy farm, to southern Illinois, where I fell in love with education, became an educator. Graduated in 1977 with my master's degree. I've done a little bit of international travel, spent some time in Belarus, so I'm very interested in what's all going on over there right now. Spent some time in Japan. So I've got a pretty broad perspective of agriculture in other parts of the world. The other thing that took up 30 years of my life was working for the University of Illinois Extension. I began my career in 1979 and I retired in 2009. And in that 30-year period, I was able to put together a program, Annie's Project, that culminated in the first class in 2003 with 10 women. And upon my retirement in 2009, that's when I took it to a nonprofit. 2014, we went charitable. And 2018-19, Karisha, Doris, is that when we hired the co-CEOs here? 2019. So we've been growing ever since this program started in 2003.
Awesome. All right, who wants to go next?
Thanks again for having us on today, Chrissy. I have kind of a unique, I guess, approach to agriculture because unlike Doris and Ruth, I did not grow up in it. I'm from Mississippi originally, and my dad was the first generation of his family to move away from the farm, to not be involved in the farm. His dad had passed away when he was very young, and his mom moved on back to Mississippi from Tennessee. And so that kind of created that break with agriculture on his side of the family. And so really my only involvement in ag growing up was from visiting the family members on my dad's side, and then some local friends that I had some cattle farms where I lived. But I always had an interest in agriculture, which was very puzzling to like my dad or even my grandmother or my mom, because they were like, I don't know where this is coming from. So I like to say that it was, somewhere embedded in my blood, and maybe, that's where it came out. But when I went to college, I went to Mississippi State University. I ended up getting a bachelor's and a master's degree in agriculture. And I ended up in Missouri after college with a job with the University of Missouri Extension. And during those first few years in Extension, I ended up meeting my husband, who is a 6th generation farmer here in Northeast Missouri. And one of the things I learned is, there's a whole nother type of education that comes from marrying a farmer and being involved in a family farm. And I think that all of those things, they were kind of happening about the same time that I met Ruth. And Ruth and I had a colleague in common, Bob Wells, that introduced us. And Bob helped get me involved in Annie's project. And I think one of the reasons the program really resonated with me is because I saw so much of myself in that. I saw some parallels with Ruth's mom, Annette Flick, with her being raised in town, marrying a farmer. And so I really could identify with where some women, um, their perspective as far as their entry into agriculture. And then I just really loved the program. I loved helping to educate and empower farm women or any woman that's involved in that's involved in agriculture. So that's my story how I got here.
Awesome. And Doris?
You know, Karisha, though, you would be remiss if you didn't talk about what you did your doctorate work in.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Doris, for mentioning that. Again, Annie's project has always kind of been at the forefront of my mind. So several years back, when I had the chance to do a doctorate degree, I did my dissertation on meeting the educational needs of farm women, kind of a case study of Annie's project. So I had the opportunity to meet women from Missouri, Iowa, and Illinois, which were the first three states that kind of where Annie's project really kicked off. And that was, I interviewed them it'd been like 10 years since they'd gone through Annie's project. So just to see what the impacts of the program had been on their lives. It was really learned a lot, and it was a great experience meeting all of them.
That's amazing.
All right. So, we needed to hear about that too, Karisha. Well, thank you, Christine, for inviting us to join you. I'm Doris Mold, and as one of the co-CEOs, my start in agriculture was probably a little bit more traditional. I grew up on a dairy farm in East Central Minnesota, and went to university. I did a triple major as an undergraduate and then did my master's degree in agricultural and applied economics and studied actually farms that went through farmer-lender intermediation. So I studied all of those stressed out farmers and very familiar. I looked at 500 different farms that went through that program. So got a really good understanding for farms and farm economics. And after that, I worked as an economist for a little while at the University of Minnesota, and I've been teaching farm and agribusiness management for the Mast International program, which has celebrated over 70 years of exchange programs with students from all over the world. It started in 1949, and they've had students from over 70 different countries. And I've taught students from probably 40 or 50 of those countries over the years. So I just do that one day a week now during the semester. And when I'm not doing that, my husband and I have a dairy farm, a small dairy farm, and a beef cow calf operation. And I have an ag consulting business as well. And on top of all of that, I work a lot in ag stress programming. So I've been doing a lot of work in that area and do a lot of volunteer work. And that's kind of how I got involved, and that's how I came into Annie's. So where Ruth and Karisha came in as extension staff and really had a passion from that direction, I had a passion from the kind of women in ag and the farm and ag organization background. I had served as president of American Agri Women, and but prior to that, Ruth and I had known each other for quite some time as from her involvement from Agri Women, and she kind of sucked me into Annie's project. As far as, I got asked if I might be interested in serving on the board, and kind of the rest is history. I was fortunate enough to get on the board and then serve with Karisha and Ruth both on the board. And then the board decided they wanted to, they were looking at hiring a CEO, and Karisha and I both were interested and decided we try to go for it as CEOs. And it's been a delight.
That's amazing. Well, these three very busy women, it's amazing. So who is Annie, and how did she inspire this incredible nonprofit?
Well, Annie is short for Annette Fleck. Annie is my mother. And as Doris had alluded to, or Karisha, one of the two, had alluded to, my mother grew up in Frankfort, Illinois. And where she got her interest on a farm was she would spend the weekends at her grandparents' farm just outside of town. So she thought, well, it'd be kind of cool to marry one of these. My dad moved out of Chicago in 1937, just amidst all that economic turmoil. And his story, how he got to the farm, was they're immigrants. His parents, his mother and father, were immigrants from Germany. And Germans knew that if you wanted to raise a large family like my dad was from, you had to be on the land. So that's what drove them from Chicago out into Frankfort, Illinois. And then my mom and dad met, and my mom thought, well, this is cool. Here's a dairy farmer and chickens. We were into a lot of different things. And she married him, was married to him for 50 years. Mom died in 1997. And I always said she died doing things her way because she was a very strong-willed woman. And she spent her lifetime learning how to be a partner with my dad on this farm. And just imagine all the problems that exist today with a woman marrying into a family farm. All that stuff still exists today. So when I had a chance to put this program together, I just used my mother as the muse for how could you have benefited, Mom, if you had had a program there to support you in education, in emotional ways. And Annie's project evolved from that. So my mother is the inspiration for the program. I took my experience with 30 years working in extension and all the women who I had interacted with and put this program together. And coming up on our 20th year, we're still around meeting women's needs.
That's amazing. Yeah.
And I think
so
that,
inspiring.
the thing that's really interesting about, Ruth was such a visionary to come up with this idea. So, relatively early on when women's needs, and it might seem kind of strange now as we have so many women involved in agriculture. Women have always been there, right? But no one was paying attention to what they needed. And Ruth saw this gap in what was being offered and really very future thinking. And the exciting thing is that there is no shortage of demand. We're growing. It's not just survived, but it's thriving and it's growing. And that's so exciting to see what Ruth started with and how it's evolved over time.
Wow, that's incredible. And a farm is essentially a family legacy. So Annie's project works with these women to really not just, help them with the business, but it is something to preserve the family farm, right?
It is. And we, in our basic programming of Annie's project, introduce them to a lot of different topics. And one of them is the estate planning, the transition planning. Because let's face it, Doris has already said it, women are a part of every farm operation all over the world. And we are the mortar between all the bricks that make up a farm operation. We tend to be the focal point of problem solving. So when generations have problems, it's the woman who gets stuck in between. When you have familiar family problems, it's the woman who gets stuck in between. So we look at women as they're pervasive, they're everywhere in this operation. And from that beginning of teaching them that little bit about transition and estate planning, we have additional programs that they can attend. Managing for Today and Tomorrow is a 15-hour program that focuses on that specific topic of business planning, transition planning, and estate planning.
I think another piece to that too, and it was something that really surprised me when it came out so strongly in my dissertation as a theme, was communication. That going through the Annie's Project program really helped women to communicate better with their spouse or their business partner or other family members. And if you think about succession and estate planning, transition issues, communication is really the cornerstone of that for making that to be successful, to be able to transfer that business to that next generation. So I think while we help women improve their communications with those family members, women learn about personality styles and how to just really improve those conversations that they're having. And I think that goes a long ways towards passing on that farm legacy or whatever farm business, ag operation, however they want to classify it or call it, help it to move it on to that next generation if that is their wish.
And don't you think too that what we're about is, I mean, the communication, they learn the skills, but they grow in confidence and
Mhm.
in empowerment, and they know their stuff. Sometimes when they come into the program, they may be a little unsure, like, okay, this wasn't my thing, or maybe their spouse or other family members didn't share in um, them being involved in decision making or helping them understand certain aspects of the farming operation. And so we expand their knowledge and expand their confidence. And, really, everybody needs to be empowered, for a farm operation to continue. One of the things and it's important with Annie's is that we empower women, we give them confidence, and we help ensure that their skill set is up to date. And that's really critical in the success and the thriving of farming operations and farming operations to continue on for many generations. That's really critical to the process, because if people don't have those skill sets and don't have that up to date information, it's hard for them to have a going concern.
Yeah. And so who should take the course? Is there a preferred age or a farm size?
No, I mean, we're open to, anybody, any age. We've had women that are high school students coming with their moms, and then we've had grandmothers that are in their 80s and 90s taking the course. Every
Wow.
different type of operation. The joy of Annie's is that they not only learn from the people that might be standing in front of the room or in front of the computer screen, but they learn so much from each other.
And I always say that no matter what somebody's role in agriculture is, or whether they want to change their role or their current role, Annie's project has a place for them and can help them, provide them with information. So whether they are the producer, whether they're married to the farmer, or whether they're wanting to become a farmer, somebody just wanting to begin and have an entrance into agriculture, Annie's project is here for all of those individuals.
And what's the format? Is it online or in class?
Both.
So
We have
mhm.
it started off as primarily in person, and we had some test cases, some pilot programs going on pre-pandemic that were virtual or hybrid combination of virtual and in person. And then during the pandemic, in fact, I will say Ruth is extremely visionary, because Annie's project had a pandemic plan that was written 7 years ago.
Oh,
Oh, 7 years
wow.
before the pandemic. Okay, so we had a pandemic plan, and I don't think most people had a pandemic plan. So we did. I'm going to give Ruth a
Wow.
big pat on the back for that. Maybe not quite the pandemic we had imagined, but we had a plan, and we quickly turned to doing virtual sessions. We did virtual sessions for the women that we train, and we went into doing virtual sessions to train our facilitators and work with the people that help deliver Annie's project across the country.
So it's available across the country, not
It's
not
we're
just in the
in
Midwest?
Yes, we're in 38 states on one U.S.
Wow.
territory. And as Doris said, I think virtual has been a new window of opportunity for folks to participate in Annie's project. Because if Annie's project isn't currently in their state, they can go and look to see on our website. We have a link for upcoming classes, and they can go to see what state has a virtual class they can participate in. I think it's also really helpful for those women who are landowners and they may not live in that state, but perhaps they've inherited ground that's in a current state, or they purchase ground and they just want to improve their knowledge about how managing an ag operation works, all of those risk management skills they want to learn and brush up on, they can have a chance to do so. And then also virtual offers just, I hate to say convenience, but it is kind of that, because we have a lot of women that may have young children, and it might be hard for them to get out of the house and actually drive. Some people drive an hour to get to an Annie's Project class. So having something that they can do from their home, still continue learning, but also still take care of their family and other obligations that they have, is been tremendous in helping us to get the program more widespread.
Oh, that makes sense. And how long is the course?
We have different courses. Our original Annie's Project course is an 18-hour course. And we traditionally would meet one night a week for a 6-week period of time for 3 hours each night. But the way we have it, where you can take virtual classes, a lot of the learning, it's kind of a flipped classroom learning where participants can do some self-learning and then come together into a Zoom setting for discussion, to hear from other speakers, to do some activities, that sort of thing. But we do have other classes that fall underneath the Annie's umbrella. Ruth mentioned earlier the Managing for Today and Tomorrow, which is our state succession transition program. It's a 12-hour program. And then we also have Know Your Numbers, Know Your Options, which is a financial program, and it is also a 12-hour program. And then we have a lot of courses that fall under something that we call Annie's Inspired, or Inspired by Annie's. And so when we're going through the Annie's Project classes, there's a lot of topics that come up that women have questions on, or they may want more information on. And so those classes can be offered outside of the original Annie's Project class, and we call them Annie's Inspired.
Wow.
And we get a number of groups, for instance, that continue to meet. So, for instance, some of our groups in the Midwest, and we found in New York, have started marketing clubs and marketing groups and things like that, or whatever topic, whatever they need. They kind of form their own, they say, hey, we have an interest in studying this further. And so in this case, the Annie's Inspired really comes through. And some of these women have been meeting together for years now, the same small group. So it's pretty exciting to see those connections that are made. And I'd like to tag on to, Karisha and I sat in on a meeting, a series of the first class, we call it, for Annie's, for Purdue was doing a session, and they had mainly women from Indiana, but they had this one woman from Connecticut. She had inherited farmland, and she wanted to know how to better manage the farmland. So she sat in, she was involved in all of the classes and made some good connections there. And so that's the beauty. Right now, we don't have an active program in Connecticut, but because we do have these virtual offerings, people can join from other parts of the country, even though we might not have an active program coordinator in the state. But, still a lot of our courses, though, especially now that COVID restrictions have been reduced, we do still have a lot of in-person face-to-face classes. We have some that are being offered partially in person, and then they might have a speaker that comes on virtually to speak to the group. So there's all different kinds of models. We have some that have retreats, and they have a retreat style program, or then sometimes all virtual.
Wow, it sounds very well-rounded. And is there, what is the cost?
That varies.
Yeah, the cost varies by state. We do not put any prerequisites on states as far as what they charge. They can decide that for themselves, and even within a state, sometimes it varies by location. But for right now, it seems like the range has been anywhere from $50 to a little over $100, $125. And I know that seems like a huge range, but we had actually, Ruth, a long time ago, had added up all of the all of the things that participants get out of Annie's project. And this was years ago, so I'm sure the fee would be more now, but it was $300 or more that the benefits, all of the different resources, there was software that the participants got, just the knowledge that they received from the speakers that came to the class. And so some locations, they may be able to offset those costs. They have sponsorships that pay for some of those expenses. But there's also classes, usually, especially if you're meeting in person, you're going to usually serve a meal because it's a 3-hour block of time that you have folks. They're giving them refreshments and that sort of thing. There may be facility costs. So all of those things kind of add up into the total cost of the program per site.
Wow, that sounds very reasonable.
Less expensive, but still it's a great value. $100, $150 is not much when you consider all of the time and energy that's put into the program.
And what if someone wants to help? Do you take donations as well? From
Of
outside?
course.
Yeah.
Then,
what
I mean, we were able to offer something for free, this spring because we had a grant for it. So occasionally there are grant dollars, but we take donations from companies, individuals, whoever would like to donate. In fact, Ruth is the chair of our development committee, so I'm sure she would love to see more donations.
That's good. And then companies can become sponsors too?
Most definitely. Well, if you think about it, from a standpoint, especially a company that might be interested, I mean, first of all, in helping to ensure the success of farming and ranching and growing operations across the country, just by helping the, all of the management of that operation being very capable, but also increasing their understanding of risk management and risk management tools. And that's one of the things that we do as well. And if you think about that, you're reducing the risk in that farming operation. So you're increasing the likelihood of that farm to be successful. And so we think it's a great investment. Actually, I'm going to put a little plug in. We think that's a great investment for businesses to really think of it that way, that if especially insurance companies and lenders, it's a great program to invest in because it's going to increase the likelihood of the success of that farming operation. And, it's a domino effect, right? If farms are successful, everybody else down the line should be more successful as well.
Yeah, those are some great points. And Ruth, you touched on this a little bit before, and I thought it was interesting about but so many things have changed over the last generation since Annie's time, but there is that one thing that hasn't changed, though, is the impact of that strong female farming partner. And that's really interesting, and that is such a great addition to the farm's success. So in what ways has the role changed over the years, and how can this generation learn from the strong business-minded women of the past?
Well, let's just first talk about how much the program has evolved, even since we started this program. When we started, I would say 1 in 10 women had emails. Now it's the opposite. We all have emails. Hardly anybody uses paper for sending out stuff. Computers. It was kind of a novelty. We were teaching women how to use spreadsheet in the early classes, how to use databases for managing information. Now, everything is an app, a software. The younger generation comes in with all the computer skills, where when we started this program 20 years ago, we were teaching those computer skills.
Wow.
And in the classroom, the younger people were teaching the older people the computer skills, the technologies that were out there, back there 20 years ago. And it was interesting because all of those women with life experiences were then working with the younger generation, kind of filling in their gaps of what it was going to be like, what their life was going to be like on the farm. So I'd say technology has had a huge, huge impact on what women do on these farms. Technology has allowed women to do better job with record keeping. And I say better job, I mean, that was my mother's job on the farm. She was meticulous, and I grew up watching this. And some of the other things, just technology makes it possible for women to operate farm machinery where before they couldn't. How many combine drivers, combine operators do we know are the women? And everything is just sort of like a joystick over there, button pushing. And, it just really does make that job for them to join in the operation that much easier.
Yeah. And Karisha, do you have anything to add to that?
When Ruth was talking about that, it reminded me of an article I had read many years ago when I was working on my dissertation, and it was talking about how women were originally the ones that were in charge of planting the crops, and in a lot of developing nations, third world countries, they still are. They're the ones that are in charge of doing the labor, putting the crops in, of harvesting. And this article talked about the invention of the plow was kind of the turning point where all of a sudden strength was required. You really needed to have upper body strength. You needed to be really strong in order to plow the ground up to make that work. And so kind of shifted to males. And we do know that women have always been involved in agriculture, but the article kind of said that the whole realm of technology, how things are turning around, it's not a matter of strength anymore. Everything is, women are running these pieces of equipment. Women are very savvy when it comes to learning these things. So I just found that is interesting, and how technology has kind of done it, I think, a complete 360 when it comes to agriculture. And it's not necessarily a matter of strength anymore. It's the smarts.
The advertisers, I have noticed, some of them are appealing to the women who are coming back to the farm or who are taking on farms as a second career. They maybe have retired from their city jobs and they're now out on 10, 20, 30 acres, or going back to the farm. So some of the implement dealers I have noticed, I don't want to say names out loud here, but they are appealing to the ability for women to operate that equipment to make their job easier on some of these farms that they're coming back to.
Yeah, but I think that's an interesting point, Ruth, and I think part of it is that they're appealing to more lifestyle farmers, right?
Exactly.
Than maybe the commercial farmers, the big equipment and things like that. And we see women involved in all of those operations, all those types of farms. But it's women have always been there, right? But we're starting to see more women, I think, take on the role as primary operator, primary producer, right? That we've got more women that are claiming that space than ever before. And part of it is because, if we look at like the census changed in how they approached questions in the 2017 census, and there'll be some additional changes in the 2022 census, but they started asking questions differently. For a long time, when people were collecting data, they didn't ask any questions about gender at all. It was just kind of assumed that you were a guy if you were farming, right? And then the woman, I guess, was just relegated to being the helpful handmaid, and then they started asking questions about gender. But a lot of us think of the person that drives the tractor around is the farmer, right? That's been kind of society's attitude. And so we've started to see a change and an adjustment in society, and then amongst women and men themselves, as far as what they consider a farmer. Doing bookkeeping, making financial decisions, you're a farm manager, right? Those women have been in a management role for a long time. They just didn't take credit, or society didn't give them credit, or they wouldn't allow women to take credit, and they still don't. But with the advent of different questions getting asked in the census, we see that, we saw a huge jump in the women that were listed as producers. And we'll see another jump now, I think, on the next census. And part of that is because we're asking the right questions. Those women were always there, but I think there are also more women now getting involved in farming as their first and foremost their ag career, right? That's they yeah, they're going to take over the farm, and it's not there's might not be a brother around, or maybe the brother isn't interested. So we are seeing a bit more of that, but I think, society's finally coming around to, oh, yes, women can do this. They can be a farmer in their own right, and women are claiming that space, which is good to see. And nothing wrong with the women that are the supporting cast either. Annie's project is there for them as well. But it's nice to see that women of any level of interest, whether they want to be the primary producer or want to support the farming operation, we're there for them and helping to empower and increase their skills.
Excellent points.
I think, Chrissy, that's what makes our program so unique from a lot of other programs. And I do recall when we started out this program, people said, well, how are you going to get over these barriers? Number one, how is livestock going to interact with grain? How are young people going to interact with old? I mean, they didn't have that imagination. They were all educating like-minded, similar groups.
Mhm.
And I looked at it as that is an advantage, that you take generations and put them in the same room, that you take an organic farmer and put them alongside the commercial farmer, that only expands everybody's horizons in the room. So I think that uniqueness of our program has done us well in these last 20 years. So I still remember the one critique I had when we started the program was it was 18 hours. And everybody groaned inside and said, women are no way going to give you 18 hours for this. Well, it turned out that 18 hours was just kind of a beginning for a lot of those women. They would ask, well, when are we going to do this again? Or my favorite were a couple of classes that forgot to tell the spouses that the class ended and they continued going, whatever that evening or that day meeting was, and they just would meet together as a group.
Oh.
So you sometimes you can't listen to the echo chambers when you're putting some of this stuff together. And because I didn't, and because I got women like Doris and Karisha there, who's backing this program up, I think we're going to be around for a long time yet.
Well, and I think you brought up a really good point, Ruth, is that we talk about isolation and farming operations. When we talk about farm stress and things, and we kind of focus on the male again is the primary focus when we talk about ag stress. But there's a lot of stress that women carry, and women carry the stress not only of their own stress, but that of the entire family and that of their spouse. And it's really critical for these women to have other people to interact with so they don't feel isolated, right? And so those women were feeling a need to continue to interact and connect with other women because they maybe didn't have any other people that understood them, that understood what they were going through. And they found some comrades, so to speak, some other people that could get them. Really, I understand what you're going through. May not be exactly the same, but I get it. I get it when this isn't working out and that this is happening or that's happening. Things are tight. And that was why these women probably wanted to continue to hang out together.
Yeah, the relationships are so important, especially for remote, and the last 2 years has really proved that. None of us liked isolation, even if we only did it for a couple months, right? We've all learned that we do need each other and to have a support network.
Karisha, wasn't that one of your founding premises?
It was another strong theme that came out in my dissertation was the network, the women that, just who they met, and not only the other women in the audience, but the network of people that they met through the guest speakers that came in. And I'll share a really quick story that to me really highlights all of that. And this is from a lady that was from Missouri. She'd gone through Annie's project, and then a year or so after she had finished the class, her husband died in a tragic farming accident, and she had 3 kids. 2 of her sons really wanted to farm one day, but they were still, one was in middle school, one was in high school, and everybody around her told her to sell the farm. Like, you can't do it, you can't keep it together, you need to sell it. So she was hearing that from some family, but also from her lender, from her attorney, from her accountant. And so she really thought about it, and she wanted to keep that farm together for her sons to farm when they got old enough to. And so she went back to what she learned in Annie's project, and she went back through the list of contacts that she received through Annie's project and through the guest presenters that came in, as she leaned on those other women that she met. And she formed a support group around herself of people that did believe in her and believed in her vision. So she got a new accountant, she got a new lender, she got a new attorney, and her grown sons are farming today because she listened to the voice within herself that said, yes, I can do this. And what really drives me and makes me love Annie's project so much is she had that within herself all along. But sometimes you need somebody to remind you that, yes, you can do it. And to me, that's what Annie's project played in that moment for her, is that because that we gave her that information, we helped her meet other people, those guest presenters that came in. She had that new network. All of that just reinforced what she really knew deep inside, that she could do it. And I'm so happy that we could play a role in helping her with that.
That's amazing. I love that.
I was going to say, and there are other stories like that. And now she's farming with her sons right now, isn't she, Karisha?
She part-time, but
Or she
they're
was, yeah.
She also works in town.
So, but we hear this story time and time again. And actually, we heard the story from now one of our women that is one of our program coordinators and has gone into ag lending. A similar story happened that her father, she was farming with her folks, and her father was killed in an farming accident. And she and her mother took Annie's project together. She and her mother didn't get along. And they took the class together because they thought it was important, if they were going to keep farming, that they needed to gain some more skills, but also figure out a way to communicate with one another.
Wow.
And circle back to that communication, as Karisha said earlier, how that is key. And she said that was why it was successful. They were able to successfully keep farming. And also it's a big reason why she's now wanting to support Annie's project and provide Annie's project for other women in her area. She's coming back now, and she's going to coordinate and facilitate programming for us. And so it's the gifts that keeps on giving, right?
Mm-hmm. And in this time right now that we're going through, it seems like there are attacks on the family farm from every direction. And so it's more important than ever for producers to be educated about all the aspects of the business in order to thrive these tough times. Mm-hmm. So what advice do each of you have for producers as we enter the second half of 2023 and beyond?
I, for one, am totally stoked about, if anybody's in agriculture, you are in the right place. The world still has to eat, and you have the resources to be able to feed them. I love agriculture in the United States because we are such a broad tent. We can accommodate the organic, the small lifestyle operation, as well as the, I don't want to use a derogatory term, but, large size operations that have, some people said, have gained a bad reputation. We service all of those. And if you are in the United States and in agriculture, you are in the right place at this time. And coming up on 2023, I am just so optimistic of what's happening in agriculture.
That's great to hear. And Karisha?
That's hard to follow up on, Ruth.
Yeah.
No, I am too. I guess I just also encourage people to really um, don't forget to pencil things out and know your numbers. Kind of going back to one of our other um, curriculums that we have, but to know what your cost of production happens to be. Know what you can afford for if you're doing cash rent or if you're wanting to make any kind of improvements to your ground or different enterprises. But I always just stress to people, please pencil out your numbers.
Good advice. Doris?
I will concur with what both Ruth and Karisha have said, but I'll add something else in. I think it's really important for you to look at taking care of yourself and your
Mhm.
family. And if you are struggling and you're having trouble, if you have anxiety or trouble sleeping at night, or you are getting depressed, or just having you know the word for it, that that you ask for help, and that there's a lot of help out there. And folks, seeing somebody out there struggling, sometimes they are at a point where they cannot ask for help. Step up alongside them and help them out. And it might not be a whole lot that you have to do, but gives people time and give them a friendly ear and help them where you can. And, so if you're not able to help them with anything from physical resources, just being there and being a friend and help guiding them to a lot of the resources that are available out there. One of the wonderful things that's happened with all of the ag stress things that are going on there are more resources available now than ever. And nobody should have to live their life stressed out. As Ruth pointed out, we have wonderful opportunities in agriculture. There are things that cause stress, but there are ways to overcome that. And we should all have a happy and healthy life, and we deserve that. And there are ways to work around some of the struggles that we have. So, need to make sure that we take care of ourselves, take care of our families, take care of our communities, and the rest of it we'll be able to pencil out our numbers in and figure things out, and we'll be able to have the highly successful farms and lives that we deserve.
Excellent words of wisdom. And I have one last question for each of you. Why do you personally serve the ag industry? Why did God put you on this earth with these roles in agriculture?
It's all I know. Born and raised in agriculture, still am involved with agriculture. It's my life. It's my life, and I'm sharing it through a program called Annie's Project.
Lovely.
I'll go back to my introduction, Chrissy, when I mentioned and I kind of joked about it, but I do wonder if it is something in the blood or something that is I don't know, deep inside me, but I've always had a love for agriculture. Even when I wasn't in agriculture, I would go to Walmart and buy the Farm and Ranch magazines. Y'all know what I'm talking about? They still have them. And like my parents would be like, why do you want that? I would always beg them to buy me one of those. So it's just always been something that's been within me. As I said, I'm married a farmer. Our son is going to be, or our daughter, one of them, hopefully, maybe if they are interested, will be that next generation to kind of carry on that farming legacy. And just being able to educate and empower women, that means so much to me. To any way that I can do to help another woman uh, solve a problem or move forward or live out their dreams, I want to be involved in that. So Annie's project perfectly pairs my love of agriculture and helping women.
Amazing. And Doris?
Wow, I after both of you, that's kind of hard acts to follow. But I guess you know, agriculture is life, and my life is agriculture. It always has been and always will be. From the time I was a little kid being asked by my aunts at family gatherings what I wanted to do. I said I wanted to be a farmer. And they said, "No, you want to marry a farmer." And I said, "No, I want to be a farmer." So I was always an odd one out, but I am a farmer, not only of the farm that we have, but I look at myself as a farmer of people and helping people be successful in agriculture and helping people understand agriculture for those people that are outside of agriculture looking in. And I just find that Annie's project and the other ag work that I do is so incredibly fulfilling. And it's not a question of doing it or not doing it, because there was always somebody there for me. Somebody helped me along my journey. And I just feel that it's crucial to help others on their journey.
Love it. That's great. And so where can people find you if someone wants to find a course near them?
anniesproject.org on the internet. We also are on Facebook and Twitter as well. We announce things on Twitter. And so you can find information. We've got a map of the United States. You click on the state you're interested in. And if you don't find anything in your state, you email us, and that email address is on the website as well, and we'll help you out.
Perfect. Well, thank you, ladies, for joining me. What a great conversation. And you're all doing such great things for the industry and supporting these farms and preserving these farm families. It's really incredible.
Thank you, Chrissy, for having us. We're thrilled that we are able to access your abilities to put our word out there as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Chrissy.
Awesome.
Yeah, we appreciate it, Chrissy. And just one last word. We're not preserving farm families. We're helping them thrive and grow and be productive, hopefully, for many centuries to come.
Very good. Well, thank you so much. And thanks to all who are watching or listening. And don't forget to subscribe to our North American Ag Spotlight YouTube, Rumble, Telegram, or AgFuse channels. And the podcast is available on Spotify, Apple, Stitcher, Amazon, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And have a great day.